place to be. Um, so like Megan said, my name's Bree King and I oversee this grant program. It is my second year working on this. So we have lots of great information, lots of changes if you have applied in the past that you'll get to learn about tonight. So you may have seen some projects around town, or you may have even applied for this grant program in the past yourself. There's a couple I just want to highlight as ones that were very popular this season. So on the left of your screen, you can see behind that beautiful City of Fishers grant winner sign, a new playground. So that is actually at Sweetbriar North, and they won $5,000 with this last grant cycle to upgrade their playground. As those of us with kids know, playgrounds are so important for building community, running off energy, and just really engaging those kids. Another example is on the right of your screen, and this is actually a landscaping and entrance enhancement project, as we call it, in the Sunblessed neighborhood. So what's interesting about this project is that all native species were used during that giant median there. And so that means that that is going to be low maintenance. It's going to need less water than exotic species. And it's just really going to look great in our climate. So a couple things I'm going to hit on tonight are general application requirements, then some deadlines, and then we also have some great additional resources for you all to look into as well. So if you've applied for this grant in the past, you may notice that there are a few changes. Our grant has been reworked in the past couple years to really encourage creativity and outside the box thinking. So an interesting fun fact is the grant was known as the Neighborhood Matching Grant, and that was established in the year 2000. So we are growing up very quickly in this grant program. Today's applications have to be submitted under one of the 4 classifications that are shown on your screen. The real purpose of this grant is to provide funding for creative and innovative ideas that make our community a more beautiful place to live and what will impact the lives of the residents of Fishers. So you can see the categories on the screen are environment, agricultural, recreation, and neighborhood. And I know those are probably sounding pretty vague to you all. So I have a couple examples that I'll throw out. But like I said, we're all about out of the box thinking. So if you have any ideas that you're not sure about, feel free to email us at any time. So an example of an environmental project may be a monarch butterfly garden, or planting native species along your detention pond edges. Not only does that delay erosion, but it also just increases the quality of your water. Agricultural could be a community vegetable garden. Recreation, as you saw previously, could be put towards playground equipment, accessible playground equipment if you have a need for that. And then neighborhood is kind of our more vague catch-all. So what we're looking at there is tactical urbanism. You could look at pedestrian connectivity within your area. Really just anything that will really benefit the neighborhood. So now on to the nitty-gritty here. So the Neighborhood Vibrancy Grant is a matching grant. What that means is the applicants must provide at least 50% of the total project cost. Another caveat to that is the maximum amount that we'll give to a single project is $5,000. Any plant material that's used in projects have to be native to Indiana. We do have a native planting guide, and we're happy as staff to help you determine those species if you have questions as well. This grant is open from November through January annually, and the grants are very competitive. We had over 20 applicants last year, and so we're not going to award projects for recurring or maintenance type items. You do apply for the grants online at fishers.in.us/grants. That is a pretty simple process, but if you have any issues, go ahead and email us with screenshots of where you're stuck, and we're happy to help problem solve. Okay. So the general process. So applications are open from November 1st to January 31st typically, and that is how it is this year. So we are coming up on that deadline. So that's why we're holding this session. That way we can provide you all with the information you need and give you enough time to go ahead and get everything together. After you apply, typically in late February or early March, the grant committee will meet to discuss the applicants, the projects, really all the details that were provided, and determine the amount of funding to apply to projects. Typically about a month after that committee meeting, the committee funding decisions are presented to the Board of Public Works for final approval. And then after that, we will reach out to the applicants with the funding decision over email. If your project does receive funding, then you have till November 1st of that following year to complete the projects and submit proof of completion. And that proof of completion may sound a bit intimidating, but really all we're looking for are photos, a brief written description that we could use potentially in publications, and any information that you feel like we would like to know, because we're very excited about this program. We think it does great things, and so we really enjoy everything that you tell us.
And Bree, real quick on the application process. So if someone were to receive funding, how do they get notified that they were a recipient?
So if that project has been granted funding, then you will receive an email that lets you know exactly how much funding you received. After you receive that email, there'll also be an update on the software that you apply on, which is called Viewpoint Cloud. So you'll be able to see it in 2 different locations. And then we'll have a staff member reach out to sign. It's called a memorandum of understanding. And then after you sign that, you'll actually be given the grant money. Okay, so we'll move on to application requirements. I know some of you may have applied in the past, and so you are allowed to apply every year at this point. When I say shoot for the stars, you know, if you have a good project, something needs done, go ahead and try applying every year. What's the worst that could happen? So when you actually do get into the software to apply, you're going to need to complete that online application. So there are some questions in there about potential outside funding, the scope of the project. If you have any questions, again, let us know. Make sure your homeowners association is registered if you're in a homeowners association. So we have information here on how to do that in our website. So it's just our main website. Go to the residents drop down and then homeowners associations. We will need a location map that clearly indicates the location of the proposed improvements. So let's say you're doing new solar lights throughout your neighborhood, just a map indicating where those lights are going. That way, when we drive out there, or we can show the committee exactly what's going to happen. We do like images of existing conditions of the project area, and then drawings or plans showing the outcome of the project. So a couple of our landscaping projects from last grant cycle, when they applied, they had a landscaping plan that they gave us, and that was very helpful. We would also like to see detailed project budget with an itemized list of project costs and revenue sources. When you apply, we have a budget detail sheet that is a part of the application that you can just fill out, scan, and upload directly. We'll also look for verification of costs. So typically what people provide is a contractor's bid that just shows the total cost of the improvements. And then finally, this goes back to our requirement for native species, is all plantings have to have the scientific name of the plants as well as the common name. So we do recommend using our City of Fishers planting guide, and that is also on our website. If you have any issues, let us know and I can send that to you directly as well.
All right, Bree, we did have a question come in, and they asked, you might be covering this later in the presentation, but if a grant request is approved, when is the cash received? When do we send them that check?
So you will receive that money after you sign the memorandum of understanding. That just says that you're going to complete the project and submit proof. So we are going to be either allowing direct deposit or check this year. So we'll reach out once the funding's determined and let you know. Typically, I believe last year it took maybe a couple months for the last stragglers to finally get their checks.
And that's something different than in the past. So in the past, this was a reimbursement program and you had to complete the project and then we would give you the check. Now moving forward with today's grant, we give you the money on the front end. So as Bree mentioned, you'll get notified that you were a grant recipient. We send you what we call a memorandum of understanding. You sign that document, and once you sign that document, we will either issue a check to the address that you provide, or we can do direct deposit as well, but that is on the front end. No other questions?
No, okay. So now that you've seen what we're looking for, I'm just going to provide a little bit of an overview of what our committee looks into. So our committee are highly dedicated volunteers that are very passionate about this community. They know a lot. Most of them have been on this committee for a while. So they recognize neighborhoods from previous applications, and they really understand what makes Fishers great. So when you're applying, I would think of these points that I'm going to mention and make sure that you're really selling your project as great as it can be. So what this committee is really going to look at is they're going to look at the age of the neighborhood. So an older neighborhood like Sunblessed is going to need maybe more grant assistance becoming vibrant versus a brand new neighborhood. They're also going to pay special attention to sustainable or environmentally friendly solutions. So that is a direction that the city is passionate about. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. They're going to be looking for vibrant and innovative ideas that are unique and solve an existing problem. They're also going to pay special attention to the potential impact of the grant and the number of people to benefit from the project. So for example, redoing a playground and common area is going to have a large impact on the kids in the neighborhood versus maybe just planting a tree might not have that same amount of impact. So that's some of the options they're going to be waiving or during their review. They're also going to take a look at the extent of local volunteers, fundraising, and involvement in the project. So we always like to see these types of projects that bring the community together. So say you're doing a planting project, if you have a couple different families in your neighborhood willing to assist, make sure to look that on your application, and we'll definitely look at the volunteers that are willing to help because the people are what bring vibrancy, right? So now we're going to talk about a really exciting project that we funded last year as well, just to kind of get the wheels turning in your head on unique and creative solutions. So some of you may be familiar with this area. Neighborhood is called the Haven, and you can see that red circled area there is about 14 acres that weren't able to be built on. So that is just common area for the subdivision. You can see on the image on the right that that was mowed and maintained, which I'm sure a lot of you folks know is not cheap. So this Haven is a smaller subdivision, just under 100 homes, but that open space is almost as large as the area where all the homes are on. So you can imagine the expense there. So the HOA were thinking, they said, wow, the cost to mow this area is really expensive for what we're getting. So they looked for creative ways to reduce the cost. So what they decided to do was convert that 14 acres of common area into a native meadow. So not only is this going to reduce the cost for the HOA, but it's also going to be habitat for pollinators and birds, look beautiful during the wildflower season, and detain stormwater. And most importantly, it'll be self-sustaining. So they worked with Habitat Solutions, which is a Hoosier owned and operated business from Columbus, Indiana. What I found really interesting is that the total estimate for this couple year long process of killing the invasive thistle, grass, and then spreading native grasses and wildflowers on 14 acres was only $8,800, which I don't know about you, that seems like a really good deal to me. So the Haven won $4,400 from the grant last year to initiate this project. So in the images here, you can see the initial step, which is clearing what was there, and then they're applying environmentally friendly herbicides in order to get rid of the invasive grass. So these are the types of projects that we are really excited to see, and the committee is really striving to fund. So now we do have a couple other grant programs in the city that you all might want to look into or potentially utilize with this program. So on the far left, you'll see the Fishers Arts and Culture Commission grant. So this can be different types of artistic projects. So exhibits, programs, displays, or other artistic or cultural expressions. We also offer the Fishers Stormwater Grant, and this awards funds to neighborhoods, nonprofits, and even homeowners within the city to improve water quality and or drainage. That's also a matching grant. And what's interesting about that is it's open year round. So it just got rolling applications. And then we're also very lucky to have Keep Fishers Beautiful. So we have a couple really great programs. We have our free rain barrel program and a compost tumbler program, which we would encourage everyone in the city to take advantage of, as well as the neighborhood cleanup kit, which will provide gloves and trash bags just to really help neighborhood cleanup. So if you have any questions about those in particular, feel free to reach out. Details are on the city website as well. And then finally, there are other programs that are offered outside of the city that may have resources available to assist you as well. So if you have a project that will go beyond $5,000 that you could potentially get from the Neighborhood Vibrancy Grant and need help identifying additional resources, I can try to help identify programs that may assist. Just feel free to shoot me an email and we'll do what we can to see what we can find. So the Indiana Department of Natural Resources has many programs that specifically aid environmental projects. So I listed a few below. We do have a link to their website where it lists the full details of these programs and has contact information to staff biologists. So if you have specific questions, please reach out to the DNR. But most of these, such as the grasslands for game birds and songbirds and the wildlife habitat cost share program, could be used in conjunction with a project similar to the Haven that we mentioned earlier. So if you have questions, I highly suggest reaching out to DNR, but you can also reach out to me and I can see what I can do as well. And then Megan has a couple other programs to hit on that may be helpful as well.
Yeah, so just some other grant opportunities that exist out there for community development. MyBOR, which is a realtor association here in Indianapolis and Central Indiana, they offer an economic and community development grant. And so you can learn more about their program at mybor.com/ECDC. And I believe that round of applications for that program just opened and they're due early February. So let's say the full funding of your project that you want to do isn't going to be able to be covered with the 5,000. These are some other grant opportunities that could be available for your neighborhood project. And then Duke Energy, who is the electric provider, the Duke Energy Foundation also offers some community grants. So I would encourage you to check those out. And that's duke-energy.com/foundation. And then some other helpful organizations. I know we've mentioned several resources tonight, but within our planting guide, which a link to that planting guide has been posted in the chat, here's some other helpful organizations, and these can be found within that planting guide. And this just gives additional resources on native plantings, or if you're looking to do a specific type of garden, let's say like a monarch butterfly garden, these would be good organizations to reach out to if you're needing some direction on what to plant, or if you're what area to plant in your neighborhood, really where would be the best opportunity for the landscape that you're looking to install to thrive in your neighborhood. And then this is also taken from our planting guide. So just wanted to highlight really the why behind us pushing for these sustainable landscaping practices. There's several benefits to that, and just wanted to highlight those here. So to go over what sustainable landscaping practices, what that means, here's a list of what that could mean. And this is certainly not comprehensive. This just highlights the top landscaping practices that we've identified. But one is to preserve existing plants. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the trees take a long time to mature, especially to reach the canopy that we're all desiring out of these trees. And so preserving existing plants is always the ideal situation instead of having to plant new trees. Conserving material resources. So instead of putting in the built infrastructure, let's say paving, we would really, a sustainable landscaping practice would be more of those natural features of landscaping. So instead of rock, doing more dirt, living materials. Treating water as a valuable resource. So with sustainable landscaping practices, you'll reduce the cost of water and hopefully irrigation requirements for landscaping. The value of soil is very, very important. So we want to make sure that the soil in our neighborhoods has the correct nutrients in order to ensure that the plants can thrive, and then create and maintain diversity. And so biodiversity, maintaining and improving that is super important for the long-term viability of our planet. And so that's something that sustainable landscape also gets at. And then benefits of native species. So I would say not only are they good for the environment, but they're cost effective. So the project that Bree highlighted from the Haven, not only are they going to help improve biodiversity in that area, but they're also going to reduce their maintenance costs as an HOA. And so that has ongoing annual benefits monetarily by converting that area into a no-mow area. Additionally, saving on water usage, reducing air pollution, again, promoting biodiversity, and then using less fertilizer and pesticides. And that helps keep our waterways clean. You know, all of the fertilizers that we use do eventually drain into our water sources. And so reducing those will help keep our waters clean, but then can also reduce the amount of algae that you see within your own detention ponds as a neighborhood.
So I know after that really interesting information, you all are clamoring, wondering, where can I buy these native species? Well, the good news is contact your local nurseries. I know I personally have found native species for my own garden just by going around to local nurseries and knowing what to look for. Another really, really neat resource is the Indiana Wildlife Federation. So they offer different native plant kits. So they have the pollinator kit, rain garden, shade, and grass. They also offer wildlife and friendly bare root trees and shrubs that can be shipped to your direct location. There's also the Native Plant Society. So this organization has a directory of businesses in the area and some that are a little farther away that sell native species on their website. So I would definitely take a look there as well. And then something that's near and dear to my heart is the DNR hosts a native plant sale. Typically occurs in spring around May or so at various state properties. So I do know Mountain State Park has held a couple of these sales. So just keep an eye out on DNR communication for more information on that. But they are out there. They're easy to find. It just takes people like you and me that care about taking that extra step to really keep our planet safe. And that is the overview of the grant, everything exciting. And I hope that we have encouraged you all to apply and share your wonderful ideas with us. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out at planning@fishers.in.us. Megan, do you have any other questions?
No, we did have one question come in about where to find resources on what type of native plants to buy, and you covered that in your next slide. So we went ahead and addressed that. And I'll just also add, so planning@fishers.in.us, that's our general planning email. I would say that's a good place to start just because someone's always monitoring that. But I also put Bree and my email in the chat feature. So if you do want to reach out to either one of us directly, feel free to do so. And we'll help you either get your grant application submitted or point you in the right direction if you're for additional resources. So we hope that this evening's webinar has been beneficial and you've learned something. Again, the deadline to apply for this year's grant cycle is January 31st. So you'll want to get your applications in before then. You can find that grant application online. I put that link in the chat, fishers.in.us/grants. And we'll also be posting this webinar to the website if you need to reference it later. But thank you all and have a great evening.